Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Just going to see if our presenters are online. Are you on there, Canmore? Oh,
Hey, yes, I am.
hello. Just should we give the architect and the landscape architect a few more minutes to join us?
Yes, Andrea, the architect, should be joining us any minute now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Um, yep, so there you go. Okay, so just a couple things while we're waiting for the presenters to log in and join us. So um, just one item for me to address with you, just to let you all know. So Christine, one of our advisory design panel members, has chosen to resign from the panel, so she will not be attending future meetings. So that was the first point. And then today we don't have a chair. Our usual chair, Kate, is not attending. So I was hoping one of you could volunteer for the position of chair today. And just a reminder too, because we are on Zoom, just make sure, please, we use our microphones or the presenters won't be able to hear the conversation. It looks like we're still waiting for the architect and the landscape architect to log in.
I'm here. The landscape architect's here.
Okay, great. And is the architect joining us as well?
Yes, the architect should be on any minute now. I just got off the phone with her.
Okay, great. Just let us know when she's there and then you're welcome to start the presentation when you're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the meeting of the Advisory Design Panel on March the 18th, 2026. And I believe that we have a presentation from the applicant. So if we could go ahead with the applicant. And prior to doing that, I think we should accept the minutes of the last meeting. I unfortunately was not available on that day. So if I could have a mover, if the minutes do not need any changes, and we can have a mover and a seconder for accepting the minutes of the February 19th meeting. Seconder. Okay. We also have an agenda for this afternoon that we received. Do we have any changes or amendments to the agenda that you've received? Hearing no amendments to the agenda, may I have a motion, please, to accept the agenda as received? Valerie, yeah. So moved. Everyone's in favor? Oh, God, I do not remember how to do this. And that's it. And now if we could ask for the architect, the landscape architect, and the representative, that would be wonderful.
Good afternoon. I'm
Hi there.
Andrea Scott. I'm the architect for the project.
Hey, Andrea.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. I wanted to briefly take you through the design revisions we provided for you for this site. So Canmore is just controlling the presentation. Canmore, if you could go to the last 4 pages of the presentation, that'd be great. Yeah, oh, there we go, perfect. Okay, so let me walk you through this. So this is the first building, building A. This is where the location of the burnt down building would be proposed to be. So what we've done here is we've completely revamped the architectural design. Now we have a facade that has the glazing and the doors for all the commercial units. It has a continuous canopy with, you can see the cedar plank. And then it also has a shed roof over the majority of the middle portion On the two end caps, we've differentiated that by having on the right-hand side a gable roof with some rock columns and the hardy panels. And then on the left side where the drive-through unit will be, we have the rock, and then we have some angled roof features as well as different color hardy panel materials. We've accented the building with wood detailing that comes in the form of columns that are on an angle, as well as roof braces that you can see coming out of the sides as well. We have continued this architectural expression all the way around the building, as that was one of the comments provided by the panel on previous occasions. And you can see through all 4 elevations here that the same materials, the same feature, the same love and care have been given to all 4 sides. So Kamwar, if you can go to the next page. So on the second page, this is the existing building B. So as it was recommended that we use the gable features, what we're going to do is that roof is quite new. It's 5 years old. So we're keeping the existing roof and the gable features, but we are recladding the exterior to match with the proposed new buildings. We are also providing the continuous canopy as directed over the front doors of each of the commercial units. And we're putting in new columns to be similar to the ones on building A that are the angled wood columns that you can see there. We've also continued the recladding of the building all the way around the sides and the rear of the elevation. Kamwar, if you could move to this next one, thank you. So this is the 2-story building, and where it is, it's located in that northeast corner of the site. So three sides are obstructed for this building. So the one really important side you can see here is this northwest elevation. It's the middle one on the left-hand side there. So what we did is we really wanted to bring that gable feature and the wood features onto this building while continuing the 2-story structure. So we've added this canopy, gabled canopy over the 2 front doors. One front door goes to the ground floor tenant, which is proposed to be a daycare, and the second one goes to the lobby that leads upstairs to hopefully what is a gym or another daycare. Then you can see how on the sides, it looks a little off because the building is not quite square. It does have an angle cut out of it. And it is surrounded by the trees. And then it also is surrounded on one side by the exterior daycare area. So we've just provided a really clean version of the building with the same material palette surrounding the other sides of the building. Kamwar, if you could move to the second. And then here we come to building D, which is a similar iteration of building A. We've kept the architectural theme on the corner, especially because this one will be on the southeast corner of the site. So it also, you would see it from Island Highway. And we have the gable roof on one end, we have the angled roof on the other end to project out and to provide some corner features. And then in the center, we have the shed roof with the shake and then the CRUs underneath the continuous canopy below. Now, there are also additional comments about the site plan. So if we could go to the site plan, Kamwar, that'd be great. Thanks. I believe it is page 5. Yeah, okay, we can start there. So another comment from the panel was that the request to provide a continuous pedestrian path as well as accessible parking stalls at each of the frontages. So as you can see on this site plan here, we have provided accessible stalls in front of each of the 4 buildings. And then for the continuous path along building A at the south, there is a continuous path and it's covered. And then, oh, no, go back to where you were. Yeah, yes. So the continuous path comes out that south right there, and then it crosses in front of that drive aisle. And then because the building B is already existing and we are not relocating it nor changing any of the footprint, the continuous path then continues along the rear of the building B. But that's a really nice feature because it ends up, if you flip to the next page, Camor, it ends up in that little pedestrian plaza we provided at that northeast corner for people to sit and enjoy their coffee. Next page. Yes, just at the north there. Canmore, right there. Yeah, perfect. And then you can walk around the east side of the existing building B. You can go into the retail shops in front, or you can cross the drive aisle and get in front of building D and building C, where there are 2 additional accessible parking stalls provided. That is all from the architectural point of view. I can pass it over to Meredith for the landscaping. Thank you.
Sure. We can keep it fairly limited from a landscape perspective. There was a few comments from a landscape perspective, but primarily there was 2 items. One was that we modified the tree palette to include Douglas firs, which we have done so. And then the second item was just ensuring that we have that continuous crosswalk and the additional plaza that we had put in the front. So you can see here, there's a continuous walkway all the way around building A, both on the back from a internal, just garbage enclosure, things like that use, but then side of the building, a crosswalk that goes across to the seating area that's in the triangular space to the north. But then also across the drive aisle to the walkway that goes around the back of building B, just like what Andrea was talking about. The other item, we just wanted to point out that we do actually still have those 2 access points that are in the center. If you go back to the first page, on where that seating area is, there is 2 access points from the main road, one facing going directly this way to capture any pedestrian accesses on the road to the north. And then on the next page, I'm going to point out that we are still maintaining that that informal walkway that goes out to past the forested area. And then I am obviously just pointing that we have been working closely with the arborist regarding the tree retention. So we have pointed out all the tag number trees, the trees to be retained all through there. Now that is going to obviously be coordinated based on what's happening on the neighboring property as well, because they are obviously responsible for tree retention on their side. And then our continuous, there's additional 4 trees of Douglas firs that are just in continuation of that canopy on the in between building C and D at the perimeter, and then going along to the frontage. And then there is the 2 access points, one at the back of building D and one at the front of building D that goes out to the street frontage as well. In reality, there's it's actually quite a good pedestrian circulation to the site now, and we do have that new crosswalk that goes across from building D to building B existing as well, with the accessible parking stalls in very good locations for accessing both building B and accessing building D and C. So in reality, that's primarily the landscape comments. So I'm happy to entertain comments or questions at this time.
I have a question, if I may. When you were discussing the number of disabled parking spaces out in front of building B, very close to the doorway, the main doorway, I'll say now, of Serious Coffee, there's about 6 angled in parking spaces in front of that area. One of them right now is a disabled parking space. Please do not take away the disabled parking space for a lot of disabled people that would like to have a coffee at Serious Coffee and not wanting to cross the drive aisle or come all the way around building B. So if you could just take account of the fact that there is already a disabled parking spot there, that would be really nice. I am pleased that there are more disabled parking spaces shown on the site. However, there could still be more than that as far as I'm concerned. I know that you have met the requirement from the zoning bylaw, but as I'm an advocate for the disabled, I'm always looking for as many disabled parking spaces as we can get on this sea of asphalt. So if you could consider putting a couple more places on, or sorry, disabled parking spaces on here, that would make me very happy. Whether that counts or not. As well, I'd like to ask the landscape architect if there was any discussion given to breaking up some of the long stretches of parking. Was there any thought given to varying the number of parking spaces that you're wanting to put on this spot, again, to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw? I would think that you would have a number of positive things you could do if you break up the parking, which would certainly make a development variance permit somewhat more pleasing to council, I would think. I doubt, I think, how many parking spaces do you have? Something like 107 or 127? Is that right?
Through the chair, that's actually the responsibility of the architect and project manager, not the landscape architects. So I'll
Okay.
defer that one to Canmar or Andrea.
Okay, if I may,
Yep.
how many parking spaces do you have?
We're providing 123 and we're required to provide 119. So just a
Yep.
discrepancy of 4.
Plus 4. Do you really think if,
Do you mind if I interject for a
Yes,
moment?
please.
I'm just looking at the staff memorandum. So it's noted on here that they were required to have 108 parking spaces.
Mhm,
And the plans indicate there's 119.
okay, so that's great. But that would mean that you would have 119 people on this plaza at any given time if there's only one in each car. I just can't see in this plaza that you would have 119 people all at the same time. And again, that would be something that you might bring forward if in fact you apply for a development variance permit. Because I think then, and this is to the landscape architect, it would then give you a chance to maybe put more areas between all the parking of some grassed in areas, maybe with a bench, maybe not that big, maybe with just some flowers, just to break up parking, and to make the entire plaza a little softer and a little more what you would see in a resort area, which is exactly what this is. So if people are coming here from the resort area, they're probably going to be either walking, or if they do bring their car, as I said, I doubt that there will be 119 people on that plaza at any given time. So as you know, you could bring forward a variance which would have some value to it if in fact it would soften the areas around the plaza so that it becomes more people friendly rather than car centric. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on what I've just said? Okay.
I guess I can chime in there. We'll definitely can take that into consideration. I guess with the planner, Kyle, we'll have that to. I wasn't expecting parking requirements to be a discussion point at the design panel meeting, but that's something we can definitely discuss with Kyle. And as mentioned, our requirement is 119 and we provided 123. So we're just off by 4. And there are going to be some reserved stalls potentially dedicated to some tenants as well. So taking that into consideration, we were just being cautious with the amount of parking provided, and we wanted to make sure we were complying with the zoning bylaw.
I understand that. And that's why I'm noting that a development variance permit may be something that you could come forward with to reduce the number of parking spaces required. And that may or may not pass council, but it may be a solution to make the properties less less car centric and a little more people centric if we could. So that people could come here and sit somewhere and, like you say, get a coffee from Serious Coffee and just enjoy the resort area rather than it being a lot of asphalt. There we go, sorry.
We'll have a conversation about this with Kyle. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Can we clarify the required number of parking spaces, make it once? Because I think the numbers changed from 108 to 119 somehow, and now I'm not sure which one is correct.
So in the staff memorandum that was provided with the package, it indicates that 108 parking spaces were required for the commercial uses, and the plan identifies 119 parking spaces on the site.
So there's a difference there.
Yes.
There are 11 parking spaces.
Thank you. So if they're saying there's 123 now, that would make it 15 extra. If there's actually 123 on the site, because that's what they said. So the second part of clarifying right now. First part of clarifying is 108 or 119, and the second part is what is actually drawn right now. Is it 123 or 119? Can anybody answer that? Has it changed to 123? Have you increased it by 4?
If I may, through the chair, my name is Kyle, planning technician. I based the 108 required parking spaces off of the architect's zoning info on based on the number of commercial spaces and the floor area of those commercial spaces. There are 119 spaces shown on the latest iteration of the plans.
So assuming 200 square feet for a space, that would mean we have, in the range of 2,000 to 2,500 square feet of area, which would be taken up by those other parking spaces, which I'm responding to the idea of creating more green space and breaking it up. So 2,000 square feet isn't a whole lot, but if it's judiciously deployed, it can have an effect. So the question becomes what the value of those extra spaces is really. I do believe that, there could be that many people on site. If you look on Sunday and see how many people are there, just, that'll change, right? But because of course the open space isn't there anymore. But it's quite possible that you have, if you take 100 cars and some of the cars will have 2 people in them. So you end up with 120 if it's completely full. 120 people divided by 17 units. The other thing we have is if we have a daycare, there's an issue of a drop-off, it's quite congested in there and it will be congested. And also because the existing Serious Coffee, it doesn't really have any space in front of it at all. Unfortunately, there's a mailbox there too, but you could configure a space there which relaxes opens up a little bit so that cars can drive by each other and people can be dropped off and picked up and so on. So those 2 locations aren't really being considered right now. I'm still learning the ropes here. I'm not really sure exactly what our purview is, and because I'm a designer, I'm trying to hold back. So we stick to the actual text of 9.7 as much as possible, which actually limits us quite a bit in a lot of ways. We can't really dive into half of what you were saying, it kind of isn't really explicitly there, right? But I think that if we're talking about just the requirement for parking and the spirit of this, I think that the idea of creating this rigid configuration that relates to the highway as number one. First of all, it's been lessened a little bit by creating more intensity in the back, in the rear of the buildings. So it's a little bit less now than it was. But the combination of having only parking and having over subscribed the parking, and then there's no trees here, which is not conforming with what we're trying to do on this section as opposed to Wembley Mall. I think there's an argument there to push that, continue pushing on that part of it. So I'm only referring to the parking. I'm not commenting on the rest, which I think is a big step forward. I think the architects had to work hard to create this whole look from scratch. And so there's a definitely, you have to say, yes, they put in some effort, and that's a lot better than last time for sure.
Just a point of clarification to the applicant. I believe you said previously that Sears Coffee is moving to Building A. Is that correct?
Possibly. There are conversations going on, and that is a likely outcome, but nothing is finalized yet.
Okay.
Further to that, if in fact that happens and Serious Coffee does move into Building A, they do not have a drive-through at this point in time. Will they require a drive-through then if they move into that space?
They are considering the drive-through
Okay.
unit, yes.
So can I just, is it time for me to discuss the drive-through? Can I do that now? Because as I wasn't in favor of it the last time I was here, and I'm sorry I missed last meeting, but I did have a look at the changed plans, and I'm really glad to see that you've changed some of the plans. But what I said then, and what I'll say again now, is that if in fact you take the restaurant portion of Building A, where you were putting Burger King or Serious Coffee, would it not be possible to move the building away from the other CRUs and have it a standalone building, and then bring your, you would still be able to have a drive-through or if in fact you go around that one building. So Serious Coffee would be standalone, and then the other CRUs would be standalone. And that would lose the lower part of the drive-through, which would then make a very nice little patio for Serious Coffee. Because I know you've done that at the back of the building, but I'm a wheelchair user, as you know, and I will not be able to carry my coffee and get all the way around the back of the building. But if it was beside the building, I may very well be able to get there without spilling my coffee. I just kind of think that when you go into a place to get a coffee, you come out and you would like to sit down. You don't want to walk around the whole building to get to a place where you can sit down. And so if in fact you could, I mean, it's up against the highway, but if you didn't have as much parking there, you might be able to make a nice little area there so that you don't have to go around the whole building. I'm really glad to see that you've changed the features of the buildings. I think they look wonderful. I'm very pleased with that. But I do still think that I personally would like to see a softening of this for a number of reasons. My other concern is with your parking spaces at the back of the CRUs. How are they going to get deliveries? Where are they going to get deliveries from? Are the trucks going to stay in the drive lane while they unpack through these back doors? And are these back doors, or are they intending on splitting all the CRUs here into two small ones rather than what they are now? Because, and even if you have it as it is, and you have somebody else at the end of Building A in a restaurant, they get a lot of deliveries all the time. And I don't know where those delivery trucks, whether they be big ones or small ones, are going to be able to unload or park. I see what you're showing me, but those are the only two in the entire space.
Yep, I appreciate you bringing this up. There's currently a restaurant that's under contract for Building D as well, and we've had conversations about loading with them as well. And they are satisfied with the way the building is laid out. Typically for a restaurant, they are bringing in most of their deliveries, if not all of them, during hours before other businesses are typically open and before or after the hours of typical
Like
business.
daycare?
Uh,
Daycare is there at, I
Go-
dropped my kids off at 8 o'clock in the morning when I was doing that.
Yeah, so let's just say the restaurant's getting a delivery at 8 a.m. in the morning. A lot of this parking will still be empty because most of the other businesses will be closed. Even the restaurant operators and the group there, they were completely fine with this layout when we had conversations with them.
And yeah, and when they move. And so all the CRUs are going to be getting deliveries through the back door? Is that the idea? Is that, are those back doors, like if I park along Northwest Bay Road, would I be able to go into those stores? Or would I then have to go all the way around Building B to get into those stores?
That's up to those businesses. If they wanted to provide access from the back and the front, they could. And if they wanted to restrict access from the back, they could.
Okay. But where would the trucks stop to deliver those things to those people in the CRUs?
Typically, for any given strip mall or mall, even a lot of the deliveries are happening before business hours, overnight. So let's just say it's a shoe store in here. The truck would just pull into these parking stalls in the middle of the night, drop their shipment off, and leave. If it's during business hours, they can park here and use dollies to bring things through the back door. So that's how they would typically take care of deliveries.
Was there any discussion about taking the restaurant, the fast food restaurant, when we thought it was a Burger King? Was there any thought of moving that over and maybe not having as many CRUs in Building A so that you could have that drive-through around a standalone building rather than all the way around Building A?
No, that wasn't a consideration. We would like to try to maximize floor space area and parking as much as possible, and we felt like this was a layout that tenants were very happy with, and
Right.
we also don't want to separate the drive-through and make it a standalone building because there are negatives from a tenant's perspective that they would account for there. If Building A was a standalone building, the drive-through wouldn't be as appealing for a potential tenant.
Mm-hmm. I know there's a really tight margin on all of this right now. I really, really understand it. I've worked with the developers and I know that you've got a really tight site here. And I understand that you're meeting all the setback requirements and I understand that you're meeting the design guidelines of our Area 7. But at the same point in time, this piece of property has people that go there and have gone there for years and years and years. And now we're getting new people in. And it's at the very beginning of the resort area. And it says hello Parksville when you're coming off Highway 19. And I think we need something that really shows that we understand good design and that this could be, as I said earlier, a little softer so people could come there and enjoy sitting there, even though the highway is right there. And the only other thing I have to say, and then I will shut up, is how many bike racks do you have? I see 2. We're going to have bike rentals in Parksville this summer. we're all very excited about it. And I can see a lot of people coming from downtown Parksville out here and go to Rath Trevor Beach and the resort area. So it would be nice if we had some bike bike stands that were a little different than the ones that you always get. I've seen some in other areas. They're shaped like animals and they actually become a piece of art. So you have a little bit of public art so that when I walk by, I say, oh, that's kind of cute. I like all the flowers around it too. Something to make it a little more fun, maybe. And that's it for me.
I think we've got at least 4 bike racks on the site.
Can you make them more fun? Thank you.
We'll definitely take that into consideration and look at our options for bike racks.
Okay.
We haven't spec'd them yet.
Okay, thanks very much. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have some questions. First of all, I mean, this is my first time seeing it. I wasn't at the last few. So I don't know the different options that were presented and I'm just responding to what's in front of me at the moment. First of all, I'm a little confused as to why there's more parking spaces than there are required. Mostly the ones that I'm wondering about and the reason what looks odd to me on the plan is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 and 6, all of the parking spaces that are along Island Highway East, those existing parking stalls to remain. It asks for a meandering pathway sort of along that side of the property. And what I don't understand is right now, the circulation is odd from building A to building B because you're in front of building A, then you turn the corner and you go behind building B, and then there's kind of a little area there, but that's in the shaded area of the site. And people they don't normally sit in shaded areas on the West Coast because it's cold there. So it seems to me that there could be something really beautiful done in those spots that are along Island Highway East to actually shield this development from the highway and make it not look like a large paved area. If there's too many parking stalls, it just doesn't make sense why those ones are still there when it specifically asks for this sort of meandering boardwalk. And perhaps that could be a place where people could sit, or there could be more greenery or more planting or something like that. Maybe a rainwater feature or something that really shows, because Parksville is a fun town. It's a fun beach town. And right now from the outside perspective, it looks like a fairly utilitarian development. Like all of the buildings are pretty similar. The color palette is really safe. Maureen's comment about something fun. I mean, I live in Tofino. All of our bike racks are whale tails. It's fun. Even things like the stripes, where if that pedestrian walkway that's coming from building A to building B is pretty significant. Like it's important. For safety and for a lot of reasons. I mean, maybe that could be art. It could be a colored stripes or something like that, like something that really makes that more playful or more fun. It just seems to me that whole side and where the courtyard is to the northeast of building B, that's the main landscaping on the site. Otherwise, all of the landscaping is in behind building C and D, which is a little odd. So most of the landscaping isn't really in the public realm. So those would be my comments. I don't really understand why those stalls are there along Highland Highway East, other than their sort of legacy stalls that were there. And I think that could be a good place to include some landscape and maybe soften the development, because right now there's a lot of parking and a lot of asphalt.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and we'll definitely try to incorporate something that would make it more fun and maybe paint the crosswalks a certain way, and we'll definitely take that into consideration. As for these parking stalls at the front of building B, going back to a comment made earlier, we are going to retain these parking stalls as is. So I know there's, I think, 1 or 2 accessible stalls here, so they will be remaining as is. And just from a pedestrian or patio standpoint, we did have conversations with the team to potentially put a patio or something like that up here. But there were concerns about highway traffic and the patio being so close to highway traffic. We just were worried that, you know, any incident on the road could lead to pedestrians, jeopardizing pedestrian safety, or anyone sitting on the patio safety. So to avoid that risk, we decided it'd be better not to put a patio at the front here along Island Highway.
Yeah, or I suppose I understand that side of things, but what about in front of building B on the opposite side? You know, that could be a big pedestrian courtyard with tables and chairs or something like that. There's how many stalls there? It's about the same amount. And so that's right in the sun. That's
In
going to
this
get full
area?
afternoon. Yeah, right there.
So in this area, we couldn't put a patio here because currently Serious Coffee occupies this space, and there's other existing tenants that require this parking to remain as is.
It is odd that there's more parking stalls than required and not a lot of usable landscape. So overall, that would be my comment, is that the landscape is kind of in the back of the buildings and the patios are small and there's a lot of parking stalls, which, as Maureen pointed out, that's a lot of people. And right now the circulation is still a little bit awkward between building A and building B. It's just awkward how you have to go around the back into the shaded side and then walk around to get to the other two buildings. So maybe there's a way to negotiate that somehow, considering that there's additional stalls in the front or the sort of that side of building B. There's some legacy pieces there that aren't fully working for the development, I think.
Yeah, definitely noted. For us, building B and the discussions around building B were lengthy, and the tenants that are existing there were very important stakeholders in all of our decisions. One of the big factors that we had to take into consideration is we didn't want to impact the businesses. We are going to impact the businesses just through construction happening on rest of the site, and it is going to also affect them when we're upgrading the cladding on this building. So we just wanted to limit the amount of negative impacts on the existing businesses, and respect the existing leases in place as well, to make sure that their businesses don't have reduced revenues, and we'll try our best to make sure that their business remains as is during construction as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand people want people to be able to park right where they're coming in, especially in somewhere where it rains. But I still think there's something awkward there. Even along Island Highway East, those parking stalls that are there, I understand that maybe a patio along the highway doesn't make the most sense, but what if that was just simply green space? If that was a planted area or something like that, just to soften things overall, because right now there's 4 buildings that look quite similar in a sea of parking. And if there is an opportunity to get rid of some of those stalls where it kind of asks, I know we're referring to the design guidelines about a meandering walkway, or something like that. Maybe it's not a walkway, but maybe that's where some bike parking can go. That's really visible as you go by. And the bike parking is under some trees and it has a nice cover or a canopy over it, so people's bikes aren't getting wet while they're inside shopping. And as we turn to a society that has more bikes, more e-bikes, people are coming out this way, it would almost be more of a feature. And maybe there could be a rain garden or something along that side that would really soften the development, especially as Maureen pointed out, it's right at the entry to Parksville. So I just think there's a better way to negotiate that side. And I think the little courtyard in the back is in the shade and kind of in an awkward spot right now in the middle of a parking space. And especially with children there, it's kind of an awkward corner.
And one of the thoughts behind putting it here was it would also act as a crime prevention tool. It would be another layer of safety for all the children that are in the daycare. So with regular presence here, it would add a layer of safety, having eyes towards the daycare. And another thought we had when putting this patio here was a lot of people that do come to Serious Coffee or some of the other future tenants, they do come through this pathway through Northwest Bay Road. And during a past meeting, it was brought up that it was important to maintain that pathway, and we are doing so. And Our thought was, people would come through this pathway, see their friends having coffee here, go and grab their coffee or food, whatever they need to grab, and join their friends, and continue conversations here.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I understand the logic. Thanks for explaining that. It seems like a small area to allow for pedestrians on a site where, as you know, with 119 cars, it's more than 119 people. So it's just very small. Maybe there could be, public art there or something. And I agree that it is good for crime prevention to have people in that back corner of the site, but still it's a very small allocation for such a big development.
Yeah, makes sense. And we also have this allocation on this side as well.
Yeah, my other comment, I would say all of the landscape is kind of on the outside, all the parking is on the inside. So maybe there's a way to better negotiate that. And then my only other comment is just that all the buildings right now look very similar. And so just some comments on wayfinding. That's one thing that we can mention. What makes one building different than the other? I appreciate that the roof forms have been redesigned in some way to reflect more of a traditional kind of West Coast roof line, but at the same time, they all look very similar. And maybe there's a way that something can be done to kind of distinguish one from the other. So when people are on site, it's easy to navigate and negotiate because again, I think getting from building A to the back of building B is slightly awkward. And then I think that all of the buildings right now look they're very utilitarian and very similar in nature at the moment. And then I agree with the bike parking. I might have more comments, but I'll stop there.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Michael?
Can I, we've got a series of requests that we had from them last time. And if we kind of organize ourselves around those, it might be helpful to keep track of what we're all thinking together, right? So I made some points on that and you can add some, but for the first one where we have harmonizing the immediate area, with the immediate area, we talked about the roof and all of that last time a lot. And so they made changes. And okay, my opinion, it's kind of a neo-Whistler, not in Vancouver style, which isn't really what we do out here. It's like the same thing happened in Nelson when I was there. Somebody came from Kelowna and did a Whistler on Nelson. And Nelson, just because it has snow, doesn't dress up like a mountain town, So there's this kind of, but those beams and the whole idea is pretty typical. We're seeing it in all the apartments coming up here and everything. So it is turning into some sort of a common style, residential, and sometimes in shopping centers and so on. So, I understand where that's coming from. And I mean, I don't know if we can go to the level of commenting on a style, that's maybe not our business. On the point number 2, and the other points are reasonably, so that's A. B, building on and developing from existing, perhaps a more contemporary. So building B is handled building B is handled in a way that could work out. I mean, this is still not the final design, I'm assuming. Continuous covered area. Well, along the fronts of the buildings, apparently there is. I don't see it on the plan. It's in, that we were talking about columns, which are actually posts, and they're at an angle, and there must be somewhere, they're on these sidewalks, which we're seeing in the plan, but we're actually not seeing them in the plan right now. That wasn't developed. But I think of like in Comox, in Courtenay, there's a mall there which has, you see it a few places that they have a little concrete thing and some double posts going up, and then I guess that's what it's intended to be, and that's what it looks like. The facade is on all sides now. They've rendered all 4 sides reasonably, so that's an improvement. It was probably intended before, but now it's much more integrated. On number 2, creating spaces within the site for shelter and sound reduction. Well, that was not addressed. Increasing the separation between building A and B was not done. Building C is no longer going over the recommended setback, and there's no more request for that, which is good. I think it appears that way. It says that the setback line is, it's well back from the setback, so I think it's okay. And then the fourth point is building siting to be modified according to accommodate for pedestrian connectivity. That's something that we've heard about a lot again today. And, I think one of the biggest problems is that building B has its nose sticking out so far, and it kind of creates a bit of an obstruction to that passage. But at the same time, that's exactly what we want. That's the one thing that breaks up this straight line running along, right, parallel to the highway. So my suggestion is that the 3 parking spaces in front go away, and you have an extra wide sidewalk in front of Sirius, so that they could put small tables out there against the building, and that you just create a green space where those 3 angled spots are, 3 out of 11 extra, right? That would be one proposal for that. The point number 3, with respect to guideline 3A, further review choices of planting materials. So I'm not expert enough to really comment on that, and our expert isn't here today. So if anybody, that's something we could say, okay, checkbox, done. Number 4 is to respect the 8 guidelines, Section 8 guidelines that have to do with pedestrian connectivity. Okay, that unifies with the other consideration for 2D, the buildings and the coordination and the siting. Number 5 was not addressed, which was to do with the parking. Like there's a lot of impervious surfaces, non-pervious surfaces, and to the tune of about 2,200, 300 square feet direct parking space, and potentially also access space. So it's between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet of area that is extra parking. They're very adamant about getting their extra parking. I don't know if there's any data for that. That's just a feeling, right? They feel that this is paradigmatically, this is a development that wants to max out its parking. It's a paradigm that's always good, right? From the tenant's point of view and from the seller's point of view. So they haven't moved on that in 2 meetings so far. And then the shading is better. Okay, definitely better. And so that's a little bit covered. So I think we could probably start from these points, because we have an hour left, right? We can start from these points, and then I don't know if we want to add anything, and if there's new issues. That's my suggestion as to how we could organize this.
Thank you, Michael. I agree with you about organizing exactly what it is that we want, so we can be really clear with the applicant. I wondered if anyone had other things to say so that we could incorporate that with this and see you
Other
at the
points
end.
Adding?
If Mary wanted to add some more things, or if Mallory wanted to add some more things, if you wanted to add some more things, and then we could look and see if that in fact meets any of those recommendations that you've
Sure.
got in front of you.
I should know that, right? I just wanted to comment, like I was going to put in comments as well, but I wanted to hear from all panel members first, anyways, type of thing. So if everyone has had a chance to speak first, then I'll add my comments at that time, but let everyone else have that first opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mary?
Thank you, Chair. I do have some comments. First of all, I would like to compliment the proponent in taking some of the recommendations about the facade and the shape of the roof and roof lines and so on. And what we have now indicates that there has been some real shift there. I would like to share a comment that somebody said to me, because I was speaking with someone who happens to be a local builder, developer, a longtime Parksville resident. And I didn't say anything about what had come forward, but I said, oh, the ADP is looking at, where the Heritage Center and where the building burnt down, et cetera. And his comment right away was, oh, that is a really important piece of property
It
when
is.
people come in. It needs to be warm and welcoming. And I thought that really pulled together an important thought. So I was actually quite pleased to see the change in the palette. It's certainly warmer, feels kind of woodsy. Mallory, I know you weren't here before, but the previous palette in my mind belonged more in the industrial park. It really didn't have that warmth to it. So I appreciate that. I appreciate some of those wood elements that's supporting. As Michael has said, it's hard to really see the canopy, but I'm thinking there's one there because I do see those wooden supports. And there's also one image that seems to indicate sort of a shadow. So I think those are all improvements. I really appreciate what Maureen has said about maybe giving up some of these parking spots, and whether it be smaller planters or even great big planters that have trees in them, would be really lovely. I think the more that one can add there can help soften that whole asphalt field. And again, much as I understand that maybe the letter of the law, as it were, is being met with having the sidewalk that goes all the way around. But I think nobody in their right mind who's coming there is actually going to go there and then walk all the way around the building. Although the people who work there and go outside, they might appreciate that. I don't know. I'd be quite willing to give up that little plaza area on the northeast corner. Because again, I go to this area a lot. I meet people there and so on. And yes, it may change over time, but nonetheless, whether or not it's serious. Cut off.
Hello? No, mine's working.
There it is. It's back. Okay. Anyway, whether or not it's Serious Coffee, it would seem that that particular site would lend itself to another food place, a restaurant or something. And, if people are going to go outside on those sunny days, people want to just stop outside the door. So I think I love the idea of, again, putting something across there. If Michael's suggestion, like a wider sidewalk there, can work. There actually is enough room to put a couple of small tables there now. I know there was a bike rack there. So again, I think that to have those seating areas and have some color out front would be great when people come. An idea of having a designated bicycle area, not a bad one. Many cycling groups actually will all meet up there, and that may change again over time. One question I have is about the sidewalk. So going from building A over to building B, and as it shows right now, but if you were going towards the highway at that time, 19A, does that sidewalk slope down, or it kind of looks like it's an edge? And I just would hope that, for what it's worth, that those sidewalk areas around building B are fully accessible for anybody who is in any sort of mobility device, or a parent with a stroller, anything can actually just roll onto those sidewalks, even though that might not be where you want people circulating. They need to be able to get there and not go across that drive-through entry. Again, I'm really not a fan of the drive-through idea. We'll see where that goes. I guess that's probably enough from me for now. But again, nice to see that some real changes have been made in terms of the look of the place. And yes, more trees, more greenery where we can get them would be lovely.
All right, I'm happy with the change in the form of the building and the facade. What I would perhaps reiterate is I think there's room for some differentiation between the buildings, as you said, and the materials are fine as far as I can tell. And in my past life, I've developed pedestrian centers, town centers, And I've always encouraged my architects to use color palette to differentiate one building from another, even if they want to use the same materials. Just do it that way. And I think that in this case, it would. I think in this case it would be beneficial if that was considered. So.
I just have one more comment related to the parking. And I know that I appreciate the list. I'd read through that before, and I think, yeah, keeping things structures is important. But again, coming back to building B, that's a two-way drive aisle and the parking stalls are angled. People will park awkwardly in an angled spot if they're coming from one direction. I know because I live in a community where this happens all the time. I do it, everyone does it. Those parking stalls that are along Island Highway East are actually functionally not great. Just because of the two-way access. If people are coming from one direction and the angle is the other direction, you can't actually use that stall. So now all of a sudden you have people that are trying to park awkwardly, making big U-turns and things like that. I think the 20-meter wide planting buffer is actually, I'm guessing what it is at the bottom corner of the site, but this would really soften the development, or do they just not have one? Because I think that that's important that that's there. And those parking stalls are not actually even functional right now. So just coming back to that and just coming back to also your comment about how does somebody get around building B? Because people are going to get around building B. You're going to walk across the street. And if you want to go into those shops, you're going to not go around the back of the building. You won't. I wouldn't. And so I just want to bring that up as a functional concern with this plan right now and why those angled parking spots are awkward.
Yeah, I completely agree that in front of building B, it is an odd pinch point there. We've had lengthy conversations about what to do there. We felt like it was best to leave it as is, especially taking into consideration the tenants. However, hearing all the suggestions, we can definitely look at potentially removing maybe some of those stalls and replacing them with greenery. I don't think we will put the patio here just because of concerns related to safety that ownership had expressed. And another thought is if we were to remove all of these stalls, we would be removing 2 accessible stalls here as well. So this site right now, as is, would have 6 accessible stalls. It would be the 2 here, it would be the 1 here, it would be the 1 here, and there's I believe 2 currently existing here. So if we were to remove the parking here, we can obviously accommodate the accessible stalls elsewhere, but it would we would need to remove those 2. And if it seems like a very important item being discussed during today's meeting. If this is something that the panel wants to see taken away, we can highly consider that.
I think that if you straighten out, I mean, looking at the dimensions you've got for the other portions of the parking, just eyeballing it. Right now, there are 12 angled spaces. If you turn the spaces 90 degrees on either end and left no parking in the middle, counting across from the building B and building A, you would still have, 3 spaces on the, I don't know what you would call it, on the building A side, you would have 3 or 4 spaces and they would fit because you've got the dimensions on the other side there. So you'd have 3 or 4 spaces as 90-degree parking on the building A side, and on the building side, you could have 3 or 4 spaces as well at 90 degrees and have no parking in between, meaning either green space or, whatever. You don't want a patio on the highway. I guess not so much for as much safety as for insurance, perhaps if something happens and then a car comes flying into the parking, into a patio, then the owner might be sued also for having, I don't know why that would be a safety concern, because there are patios near roads everywhere in the world. Maybe it's a new insurance thing, but that doesn't seem to be, I mean, I'm not sure. I can't say for a fact. I don't have evidence in myself, but it seems to be a really unusual requirement because also this property line is not the edge of the road. This property line is quite far back from the road. So I'm not sure of where that comes from. Anyway, we've got 12 spaces in front. We've got 11 extra spaces. We've got 11 extra spaces. We've got 12 spaces in front. We can have at least 8 at 90 degrees. I don't think this is a difficult design problem.
So on the side here, I've got a second screen. I've been looking at the parking bylaw and the calculations we provided as well. So the parking bylaw in the city of Parksville is unique based on and varies significantly based on the type of use. For example, for a coffee shop, it's different than for commercial retail. For a coffee shop, it's based on the number of seats. And for commercial retail space, it's based on square meters of space. So based on that, currently, it does seem like we are providing 123 and 119 would be required based on the current use. And our requirement could go up if certain types of uses were to be incorporated. So the use, so for coffee shops, you need 1 per 4 seats. And for commercial, you need 1 per 30 square meters, which there's a variance there. And it does vary on whether you're doing building material supply, if you're doing a laundromat, an ice cream stand, I guess. So taking all that into consideration, based on the math I'm doing, I think we are just providing 4 extra stalls and not I think it was 11, the number that we were talking about before. And this requirement could go up if we have certain uses enter as tenants.
I would have one technical question. The building is built according to, I mean, this is in terms of the code, the building is built according to whatever we are proposing now. And then the tenancy changes. And then you need 130 spaces because of the bylaw. What does the city of Parksville do? Do they disallow the new tenancy?
I think I've dealt with this in other municipalities in similar cases where the tenant would need to propose or the owner on behalf of the tenant would need to propose a variance at that time. And it's up to the city to approve or deny that variance. It is what I would understand how this would play out in the future if that was the case.
It would seem that you're correct, Kenmore, that a variance would be required. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just curious, and even if it was a question or 1 or 2 stalls in this case, would it be possible for the proponent to request a variance at this point in time or not at all?
As far as staff are concerned, the requirements have been met, so there is no variance requirement for the parking.
So
Could I
you're
ask-
saying the requirement that, sorry. The requirement was met at 108. The requirement was met at 108? No, it's not working. The requirement was met at 108?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, from the 20 CRUs that were shown.
It's okay. Just hit it.
It's mine. Well, I can't
get it to turn on. Is it a battery problem?
It's me.
And sorry, if I could just go back to my original question, was a a development variance permit discussed as you went on with the planning of this site, knowing that you had more than enough parking spaces, but if you removed some and made it what I would say a better development or a different kind of development, would that not have been something you would have considered? Is it development variance permit or is it timing?
We did not consider a variance permit for parking because it wasn't required, and we wanted to design the project in accordance to the zoning bylaw, and we have proposed something that meets the plan, and we didn't expect that the city might want us to propose a variance.
I don't know if we want it to propose variance as much as maybe there's, to me, the entire site is overbuilt, but that's my opinion. I feel that if there were smaller areas or if the buildings were broken up a little bit more, from just being the usual anywhere kind of strip mall, I would think, as I said earlier, that a variance would have been considered more. If you showed a better design, then a variance may have been considered more readily than what it is now.
Could I make a suggestion, Maureen? Maybe as part of the forming of the recommendations, we could suggest that they work with staff to consider whether there's opportunities to maybe reduce the number of parking stalls. Going back to your question about like confirming the number of stalls based on the tenures of the businesses in the future. So this would be something, it looks like staff have already reviewed it based on what information has been provided. But sometimes the amount of parking stalls is sort of determined when businesses come in to apply for a business license.
I just wanted to add on to that. I think in terms of a recommendation, I think one of the concerns with those particular parking stalls, so that it be considered, but also because of the lack of 3B, which is a planting strip along Island Highway 19A, specifically referring to the design guidelines, which is not included currently. There's been a lot of conversations specifically about this being the entry to Parksville, softening it, making it beautiful. Parksville is full of parks and flowers and trees and all of these things. And it's important that that landscape buffer is there. Otherwise, you're driving into Parksville and you're looking at a parking lot. And that's what you're going to look at. And so I think that those stalls are awkward. They're not functional. They're angled. They don't work. And that's the area it should be considered. You know, that's my thought on that. And it could be formed in the idea of a recommendation that those specific ones are addressed or that the planting buffer is addressed somehow.
I wanted to ask myself why that buffer isn't included right away as a requirement, because it's in the previous project we looked at, it was ignored as well. And so it's really hard at this stage when the project is planned to take a strip of land off it like that. So on this one, because of the red dotted box, I said, okay, pre-existing, right? That's a good argument. That's number one. So the pre-existing argument is there and it can be argued, but on either side, it isn't pre-existing. So why was that ignored? You know, it's not really at our stage that has to be brought in. That would have had to be brought in earlier. So that's one. I think that this parking thing weirdly is still not clear. The requirement is 108. The proponent has said he's worried now as another method of keeping all of those parking spaces that he might not be conforming later at some time in the future when this thing is built and tenants have come and gone, that there might not be enough parking to be legal. But the city is saying 108 is good, right? According to what we know now, that's what it is. So I think instead of muddying the water, we can still work with 108 as being our bottom line, as opposed to a speculation that we might have a higher requirement at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And in addition to that, the parking requirement for from tenants has, from what we've seen, not just on this project, but other projects as well, is typically higher than the bylaw from municipalities. For example, there is a small grocer that's looking at some space. Their requirement is 3.5 stalls per 100 square meters, which would be higher than the city of Parksville's bylaw. So we are taking all those considerations into this as well, and as well as some restaurants. They require certain stalls to be designated as reserved stalls. We are planning on dedicating some stalls for the daycare as pick up and drop off. So taking all that into consideration is the reason I keep going back to parking, but I am definitely open to working on readjusting something here for it to work better. I do like the idea of having just 3 or 4 90-degree stalls, and we'll make sure we make maybe put 4 stalls here, make one of them accessible, put 3 stalls here, make one of them accessible, and that would just open up the drive aisle here. And in terms of the landscaping along Island Highway, we do have some landscaping here, but if you would like to see some additional landscaping, we can definitely take that into consideration as well. Sorry, Meredith, for speaking on your behalf.
It's fine, actually. I mean, we did actually provide some additional trees in front of the building B side per the last ADP comments, where there was a request some additional trees. So we have actually proposed an additional 3 trees in front of the building B side, which did essentially rely on the soil volume requirement for off-sites, but the additional 3 trees, one on either side of where the garbage area and one at the driveway entry those are in front of the B side. So next page. So the 3 trees that are there are new ones supplementary to what the previous ADP panel was, with the request that there was some additional trees planted there.
Oh, so much to.
Thank you, Meredith.
And you're meaning the 3 trees at the back of building B? Am I correct in that?
At the front of building B on Island Highway.
Oh, okay. I see them now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I may at this time provide comments in perspective. Thank you. Oh,
What do you think?
I'll just generalize and then Michael can take over. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Doug O'Brien from the city of Parksville. I'm here to provide some perspective anyways from our community. As mayor, of course, I get all the comments, all the questions, and all the emails come to me regarding prospective developments in our town. In this particular town or this particular project, I have to say I've been following your panel meetings. I am really appreciative for the efforts you've made on the roof line, on the gables, and the pitched roofs, as well as the cladding on the backside of the building facing Northwest Bay Road. Much appreciated because it's very visible. This particular location that you're at has been identified by some of the panelists here, is truly what we call a gateway project coming into the city of Parksville from the south. Your neighbors right beside you have some very prestigious location, and one is our Parksville Museum that is undergoing immense renovations and improvements to it, as well as the visitor information center that greets our people, our visitors, and also prospective new community members that want to move to Parksville. So as well in this area, I would hope a development of your site, and maybe you've done this, and forgive me if you have already done so, but I would hope that you would come in with the intent of like blending into the existing neighborhoods, and in fact, not only blending, but complementing the existing neighborhoods. The neighborhood that you're moving into has a very large development immediately south of it. It's called the Craig Bay community, and it's a huge development of mostly retired individuals right on Craig Bay. adjacent to you, behind you, like looking at the back of your building off Northwest Bay Road is called Parker's Place, a relatively new development of single-family dwellings that has created a new neighborhood community, which is very well received. And then on Arbutus Road, you have the Parksville Mobile Home Park, which is home to a very large amount of mostly seniors that have found Parksville to be a great place to retire to and are finishing their final days in Parksville. And they love it there because it's such a level site and it's in what they feel is a very safe community. And they've been there for a very long time. So I think respect to these neighbors would be appropriate in this case. And what I'm getting to is that my phone is ringing off the hooks now because the neighborhood has been led to believe that there may be a drive-through restaurant at this location. And I see it as in your building A, you're including a drive-through. And this brings great alarm to these residents. They're very upset about this because of the very fact that is not only carbon emission friendly because the cars are constantly idling as they're going through the drive-through, but it just screams, I'm sorry, strip mall. It really, instead of strip mall, this really should be a village concept, I would hope, on this site. It's called the Heritage Center. And for good reason, probably because it's adjacent to the museum. But at the same time, it would create great inconvenience for those individuals in the Parksville home park that I care very much for because they worked a long time for Canada, a lot of veterans as well. And they're going to be disrupted by the constant traffic that's going through this as the people are placing their orders and so forth. We've all gone through the drive-thrus. We know what it's like. You place your orders, the speakers are going back and forth, but it's a continuous circuit of traffic, which is exactly what we don't need in this neighborhood. Really, I love the idea of the restaurants. And Serious Coffee is also a very big part of this development already. And just, if I may, because I talk so much, if I may let you know about the very importance of what Serious Coffee is, you call Building B of the existing. They are a tenant at this location right now, and they have been through 3 different owners as long as I've been here. But anyways, I know the owner that they're now. They are a meeting place for very much of this community, but not just the community. They're because of the size of their square footage, they're very busy. And they're very busy because they can accommodate large groups. So I know the Parksville Newcomers group, the walking groups, the bicycle groups, those guys, many running clubs use this as a place where after they finish whatever particular endeavor, recreation they're doing, they all come to Serious Coffee. In fact, there's so many of them, it's just a din of noise, happy noise in this place when all the groups are in there. So they use this area. And so I was very surprised to hear that perhaps Serious Coffee may be relocating into area building A. I may be incorrect, and because I wasn't even aware of any other Serious Coffee. I love my coffee, and I know Serious Coffee on Vancouver Island, and I don't know of another Serious Coffee drive-through. But regardless, I could be mistaken. But anyways, the huge opposition to the proponents at this point is to that drive-through. And in fact, so much that they've asked me, is it necessary for us to get a petition going through the neighborhood, all the way through Craig Bay Estates and all the way through down Arbutus and Parker's Place. And they want to get a petition to stop a drive-through from going to this location. And they want to ask me if that's a worthwhile thing that they will bring to council when the development permit is going through to present. And I have advised them that I think it would be more appropriate if I at least allowed the developer the option of maybe removing that before being faced with a very large petition of opposition for it. It's not a good way to start entry into a neighborhood is all I can say. So I guess the question to the proponent, if this time, if I may, would you consider eliminating the drive-through component? Because seriously, was referenced, no deference to Serious Coffee, where you have your drive-through going through, it's right on the west entrance into Serious Coffee. I'm not sure if they're going to provide different egress than just from Island Highway East side, because right now there's a door that goes right where that driveway is, which would not be safe at all. Anyways, and so if that driveway was eliminated, if you got rid of the drive-through component, that would be the perfect spot for Serious Coffee to expand their patio use out onto that space in between there, and plus provide safe access to building A, back to building B, and then through to building C's and D's. All continuous, not with an interruption of going through a drive-through lane. I have to say, I occasionally here in Parksville, I cut through the drive-through lane at Starbucks that are here type of thing as I'm on my walks type of thing. And oh my gosh, not a good place to cross in front. When people need their coffee, they need the coffee. So, and I get it. But at the same time, I think that this is a very poor accessory to this mall, to this heritage center. I think you could do far better. I could say that before the location burnt, right at that particular spot where you're proposing the drive-through, it had a veterinary hospital that was extremely busy. And they need more spaces in Parksville. I can tell you we need more vets in Parksville. As much as we need doctors, we need vets as well. Anyways, it was an extremely busy veterinary hospital that went into their type of thing, and it was very popular with all the community because most of the community have pets. So I would just really seriously consider the opposition that this development is going to encounter from the community is to eliminate the drive-through. That's just my spiel on the drive-through. I talked about the access to Serious Coffee. I'm worried about this is a resort area classification. I get it, but it's also resort area, but it's also homes for people. It's not just resorts. These people that live here full time, and these are people that are to speak. They're well heeled. The homes and so forth, Craig Bay Estates and so forth. They pay a lot of taxes, and by paying a lot of taxes, they feel that they have a lot to say to me, which they do, because the buck stops here. So they're saying you got to try and make this a better development. You see the other developments that we have going on further on down on Island Highway, 1180 Resort Drive, and so forth, where we've asked for not just a good development, but an exemplary reward-winning development. And the developers are doing over and above to create a very special location there. So all that I'm suggesting to the proponents this time is look at the neighborhood you're coming into and try and fit in and complement and create a mall, maybe a village concept mall that is going to attract tenants and success for all of your businesses that are located in there. Because if the right businesses are located in there and the right fit, you will be very busy. You'll have no trouble getting tenants. So that's just my thoughts. That's what I do. And I just appreciate any consideration you can give to that. If the developer could comment on and just suggest there's a possibility, and then I'll finish off with one more question.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you taking the time to come to this ADP meeting and share the concerns and your feedback, the concerns of residents in this area and your feedback as well. One thought I had while you were speaking was if we were to continue with the drive-through as is and proceed to council, would you not support this application proceeding past council?
I can say council are very sensitive to the wishes of our community, and if the community says to our council that they're not happy with this council is very sensitive to listening to our community. And we have recently turned down another application. And I can tell you it was just last week, Councillor Beal at the same table here today can attest to the fact there is a location that a developer came in with a proposal that was not in keeping or fitting with the neighborhood. Their proposal was turned down and turned back to the developer to come back with a better project that was more in fitting with the neighborhood. So I'm just trying to maybe save you a lot of money in all your architect drawings and so forth by maybe considering that a better fit to this particular neighborhood. Maybe this would fit somewhere else, but I'm just suggesting it's probably not going to sit well with the neighborhood or the council the day if the community says no.
That's fair. And Mayor Wood, knowing that the drive-through unit has been the most attractive unit and the one that's attracted the most amount of inquiries and potential tenants, and inquiries from potential tenants that I think would be good for the community of Parksville, change your opinion at all? Because it is, there's been countless restaurants that have no presence in Parksville that have expressed interest in this drive-through as the only drive-through that is being proposed in Parksville in the near future. It would be a good opportunity for a potential new tenant, a business, a restaurant that currently isn't in Parksville, for them to enter Parksville via that drive-through. It's been by far the most inquired about unit, the unit that's had the most offers. So learning that the community doesn't want this is a bit of surprise to me, because from my lens, I would have thought that the community would have loved the drive-through, because it would bring in a business or a restaurant that hasn't been a part of the Parksville community in the past to this unit. Yes, currently, Serious Coffee is one of those groups that's looking at the unit, and that would just be them moving from building B to building A. But there have also been countless businesses and restaurants that don't have a presence in Parksville have also been looking at that unit. So just thought I'd get your feedback on that as well.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I totally recognize that where there's somebody, like if you're a Burger King fan, just pulling that out of the air. If you're a Burger King fan, that would be an attraction for you. But at the same time, even if you are a Burger King fan, I think that you may want that in the location of Parksville. And I get that, but just not here. They're not when you're going into a neighborhood, residential neighborhood. And I have to say that we did have this conversation previously when I was a counselor on the previous council regarding, quite frankly, it's Wendy's at the other end of town on the other side of the Orange Bridge on Pioneer and Island Highway. And it went through, and in fact, it not only went through with the Wendy's having a drive-through, it went through the neighboring Popeyes, I believe. They also have a drive-through as well on the same site. And to me, I've always regretted that decision, that allowing that to go through, because it actually created a lot of unnecessary stress on the neighborhood, which is in that case, it's a Pioneer Crescent neighborhood, that has caused a lot of stress as to the signage on it. It was the noise, the increased carbon emissions and so forth for a Wendy's. And there are some people that do enjoy the Wendy's, and I get it. But at the same time, the people that are have their residences on the back of Wendy's and the other ones, they don't enjoy it. They feel that their neighborhood has been intruded on, and they know fully well that they were, commercial on the Island Highway. But at the same time, it should be transitioning to the neighborhood in a sensitive way. That didn't happen on that one. And actually, I regret that I wasn't stronger to turn down the drive-through component on both sides. But I've learned from that. And I'm trying very much here to represent our community to say that this is not a good fit at the site, sir. And I think we have to consider the people that are paying taxes and that have chosen Parksville to live here for a reason, and they've got their homes there. And now it's going to be interrupted by a drive-through, I'm sorry, it's a strip mall restaurant that is not in fitting with the lifestyle that they were hoping to retire to here in Parksville. So it's not a good fit. Maybe for the people driving by on Island Highway, it's a good fit, but it is just not in this location.
Is there any possibility that we could add some screening along the back here, large trees, some audio screening as well, that would potentially allow you to support this drive-through.
Kyle, did you want to speak? Did you have something you want to say?
Yes, I would just like to provide some context about the zone, the current zoning, which is highway commercial. In the purpose statement of that zone, it does mention that it is it's intended for shopping opportunities, primarily by the public and automobiles. So that is in the purpose statement of the zone. Also, the zoning does currently allow drive-through. You can't disallow an existing or a land use that is permitted in the current zoning. So I think that we need to focus on maybe mitigation measures, light and sound mitigation measures, rather than saying we're going to disallow a drive-through, because that is getting into some legally iffy territory.
Yes, and Kyle, I appreciate that, and I fully recognize that. But I fully recognize that I made very strong attempts to have a bylaw put it through to stop drive-through restaurants entirely in Parksville. And I was advised that, well, that's a very long process to make happen. And it could be difficult. And because there may be one or two maybe in the wicket, and maybe it would be best to try and address that with the developer. So I was turned away from doing that, which is unfortunate, because many other areas in North America have considered the fact of how, with climate change and everything that is happening and climate action, and we have climate action committees here as well, that this is not a good fit climate-wise. And so let's just look at that in itself. So things move. Yes, it is. Zoning is allowed, and I understand it. Zoning is allowed for drive-through, and it is permitted. But at the same time, in the current reality of where we are with climate change and carbon emissions, I think the responsible thing to do is to try and eliminate unnecessary carbon emissions wherever we can in the smallest manner. And we have chosen not to do that at City of Parksville, which is rather disappointing. But at the same time, here we are. So I am actually just letting the proponent know that and I understand your suggestion that screening may be helpful. And if I can't stop it, sir, yes, I would hope that you would do that. But I'm actually just applying to your desire to create a better product for the city of Parksville, which I'm sure you're trying to do, because you certainly listened to the ADP up until now. But at this particular point, I'm just saying you're going to have a huge amount of resistance in the neighborhood that you're moving into. And I understand it, but so be it. So I'll quiet for now.
And Mayor, I appreciate your feedback, and I'll definitely take this back to ownership. Myself, I'm their development manager. I represent the owners. So I'll definitely take your feedback back to the owners. I'll definitely have a chat with the architect and landscape architect about this as well. And if the drive-through were to remain, I can assure you that we'll do a better job of screening, and we'll implement ways to reduce the audio impact. And we overall want the residents around here to be happy with the development in the end.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Mary Beal, Counselor. I'd just like to add, I've also mentioned already that I would prefer not to see a drive-through there. And in fact, I think it opens up other opportunities for more vibrancy and color and places where people can gather. But I'd also like to ensure, I hope that the proponent understands that there are many people who are actually moving into this area, that nearby there's a new development going up with 3 6-story buildings, apartments. There's additional apartments going in. There's a proposal coming in for across the highway that if it goes through, there will be an additional number of homes going there at some point in time. All to say that this area is actually developing into quite a little hub of commercial and people central area. So that I think that if you've got tenants in there, quality tenants, they're going to be happy, and there are going to be many people in the immediate area, never mind from farther away, who would be coming to that spot.
Thank you. Yes, and we have been in communication with neighboring developers, builders, contractors. I know Westmark is doing the development to the north there, where the 6-story buildings are going. And we have spoken with them, got their feedback, and we've been in communication with the surrounding stakeholders, and have taken their feedback into consideration regarding this development as well.
Thank you very much, Kanwar. Are there any more questions or comments that anyone wishes to make? I believe, Michael, you wanted to go through your list. Am I correct?
Yeah, why don't we go through the list and everybody can respond to individual points, hopefully in 1 or 2 sentences instead, because we only have 20 minutes left, I think. Is it a hard stop or is it no? We'll see.
We should try to finish as close
Okay.
to 4 o'clock as we can.
We've managed so far in the three meetings I've done, it's been stopped right at 4 o'clock. We finished. So the first point is the harmonizing of the immediate area, including the housing with the houses located behind. And I think the mayor just gave a pretty good feeling for what we're talking about here, adding context to, from what it sounds like. I think as a general, anybody have any comments on that? Anybody want to keep pushing on that?
Won't keep pushing on it because I've already said enough about the drive-through, but
We're talking about the form of the building right now.
right. And I'm speaking to that as far as what the mayor was saying regarding the area around here, and them not being in favor of a drive-through restaurant. I think
Right.
that that's something that we definitely, or the proponent should definitely take into account, and maybe look at some other tenant for that area that more reflects the senior neighborhood, and one that is sophisticated. There are sophisticated neighbors and there are unsophisticated neighbors.
Yeah.
I think it needs to respect both sides.
Okay. So the drive-through is something we want to put in question.
Definitely.
And put it down in writing. That's number one. So about the harmonization of the building form, the way the building looks now, just as a overall idea of how it appears. Any comments on that? Because that's what basically this first point is all about in terms of the way, design.
Well, you had a really interesting point earlier. The ADP guidelines specifically say sloped roofs in traditional lodge or West Coast contemporary architectural. And the thing is what is West Coast contemporary architectural? And as you
I know.
pointed out, there's a number of buildings that are going up that do look like this building. Whether that fits into a heritage context, which doesn't really, but that is up for interpretation. So in that sense, I don't really know, how much we can push at that in terms of the design. The roof is now sloped. Is it West Coast contemporary? That's the comment that we're able to, I don't know.
There's a
Don't know
good
what-
challenge here by, in terms of that building B has been reskinned with some materials which are similar to what the building uses, which are not foreign to this area. So the new buildings are more vertical and very heavy looking, robust pieces all over them, where the existing building is surprisingly small looking and has a much more humble kind of presence, whereas the new building kind of really, stands up, and wants to be noticed. All I would say is that what we're looking for is somewhere between the two, in my opinion. It's again, the thing about being contextual. The building proponents have a paradigm in their mind of a highway building. They are speaking to the people driving on the highway. They are thinking of tourists. They are thinking of people who are moving through, who are going to find a station to stop here and get stuff, like a burger or whatever. Yet most of the shops here will be catering to locals. And they can't survive just on highway traffic, people traveling through. It'll be people from the local area. So there's a conflict there also. It's not quite as clear as it might seem that this is a highway building because the people coming on the highway are local. So, I mean, I don't really know how to word it. I mean, frankly, I don't know what to say. I would say that the building could tone down its massiveness and be a little bit more local, but I don't know what we could possibly say about that. Anybody have any wording for that? Anybody have any comments? Or should I just say what I just said?
Never without a comment. I do find the fact that all of the buildings are dark in their way. And as I said, and as Valerie agreed, we need to have something that says, we are a beach town, welcome to it. Here's a beautiful sign that says, welcome to Parksville. We're so happy to see you. Come and play with us. What is it? It says on the sign as you're coming off of 19, live, work, and play. I don't see any play here. And in the buildings, whether they're humble or bold. And I do find them, all four of them, to be dark with I like the fact that you brought in the stone. I like the fact that you've changed the gables. I like all of that, but I do find the dark colors to be somewhat
Okay.
cruel.
Okay, so dark, a little bit overscaled, and a little bit heavy looking. Back off and make it more.
I think that I've said this numerous times at the design panel, because I find this is happening with a lot of new architecture that's going up, but these buildings need an identity again. They need to feel more Parksville. They could be put anywhere right now. And the idea is that they're intended to fit into context. So maybe there needs to be some wording around creating an identity, around wayfinding, around all four buildings being exactly almost identical. It's hard to discern one from the other. And maybe there's simple ways to do that, as you pointed out, in terms of color or materiality, but some ways so that, and the mayor mentioned a village. When every building looks the same.
Village setting.
Yeah, so I think that's just something that we could comment on in terms of, creating a little bit more diversity between all four buildings and a bit of an identity again.
A little bit of a town square or something.
Yeah, or elements of play, some public art. These are easy things to include that really make a big difference in a development. Again, you paint white lines on the sidewalk or you paint colored lines. You bring in some bike racks that have some, creative elements to it, things like that. So I think it's not a clear way of wording it, but that's how I would try to describe it.
Okay, so I think we've got a series of words that could be compiled into a paragraph. I'm assuming that we're going to call the proponents back for another meeting. Is that the consensus here?
It sounds like that might be the consensus. Certainly on my part at this point in time, I would not be supporting the development as it stands, even though it meets most of the design guidelines and all of the zoning recommendations.
Okay.
If I may speak, would that be okay?
Yes.
This is our third time coming to this meeting, and each meeting is about a month apart, and this is obviously delaying this project progressing, and I do know that your input is extremely valuable, but I would request that we be allowed to proceed to council, and I'm also willing to agree to certain changes right now. And if we were to essentially agree to those changes, would this group be okay with us proceeding to council? Because in each of these iterations, we've been able to make the changes pretty quickly, and then we just wait 28 days or 3 weeks for this meeting to happen again. Or I would request that if you would like to have this meeting again, that we meet again maybe next week or the week after, because it is adding significant time to this project as well. And I know it's extremely important to have these meetings, but I would request that this not delay the project by another month because of this.
And I understand that every day equals more money. And I know that developers are moving to a tight timeline to get these things done. It would be up to the rest of the committee, and we will certainly discuss whether or not we wish you to come back for a third time, and maybe we'd be able to move a meeting to a better time for you that doesn't extend the time of your development application too long. I understand how important it is to move forward, but you must also understand that obviously a number of us want the best development that we can have at this gateway property. So we both have issues.
Absolutely. And some of the recommendations or conversations points that I've already written down and that I can agree to us implementing would be more trees and greenery, us readjusting these stalls at the front to be 90 degrees, removing these stalls, making sure that at least one of these stalls on each side is accessible. Changing the colors of the buildings slightly so they still fit within, fit together, but so there you can separate the buildings. We can definitely make some changes to the color there. And we can also commit to making sure that if we do decide to keep the drive-through, we add significant landscaping and solutions to and acoustic solutions, and we can also get an acoustic study done as well. And all of those items can also be conditions that Kyle can put in writing for us.
And can we finish? Okay, we've heard that. I just thought we were going to finish this list here to make sure that either we're going to accept that they're not done or we're going to reiterate them. Okay. And also what he was saying, I mean, that's all part of it.
So
But I'd rather use
can
our
I-
list.
Can I just ask a
Yeah.
quick question? Are we moving from the discussion into the forming of the recommendations at this
Yeah,
time, or are we still
trying to.
discussing? Okay, thank you.
We're trying to. So we discussed A, B, and C to some degree. I'm getting a consensus that we're not quite happy with the overall look, but it's a big improvement. Correct? Okay, we've got that. Part of the overall look is the drive-through. So we want to have that under that title, like the drive-through we're challenging the drive-through. And I think the mayor's made it clear that if it goes through to the council, it will get challenged again. Right? So it's not just on our side. Now, number 2, we have 4 points and 3 of them were not addressed.
Can I just
Yeah.
ask, so just for clarification,
Okay.
for the recommendation formatting and for writing it, are we then keeping like the recommendation 1A through D, or are we changing the language?
The recommendation is that we're happy with the harmonization as such, and that the dark, overscaled or heavy look on the new parts is a little bit, it's not really Parksville, and we would like to see something that starts to work toward a Parksville look more clearly. Understanding that that's a big ask, but it's out there, and it's something that really concerns the people on this panel.
Michael, I think what Sarah might be saying, and certainly correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong, that we have got to look at the development permit area number 7 guidelines and come up with how it does not, or if it does, meet those guidelines.
Right. So I was referring to the original comments we had based on those guidelines. Now, if we go to 1A, we have a comment here that the recommendations we had before were A, B, C, and D,
Right.
according to that 9.7. So architectural design should generally complement the natural character of the area, its use of form, materials, colors, and finishes. So what we have received is something which is kind of a general response to a place that's not in Vancouver.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit questionable, as if that's a Parksville look. That's just a different look.
So
And
could we look at that as being under architectural design and character, number 1 in the design
Yes.
guidelines?
that's number 1A.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think what we're doing, it's my understanding is we're looking at the minutes from the last meeting and going through those recommendations. So.
You have that in front of you.
sorry, and I wasn't here at the last meeting. I'm so sorry.
No, it's written down here.
Yes,
I'm
it
referring
is.
to
I
the
have it.
exact
I have
text that
got
we
it.
had before. So the thing is, they went off and they got they got these recommendations from us. So what I was proposing, or what we were doing, is like going through them step by step to see if we can just say, check, eliminated or not.
Mm-hmm,
And if not eliminated, what?
mm-hmm.
Okay, and that way
Okay.
we can structure what we do now relatively quickly, and organize our opinions and thoughts, right? So
Mhm.
that's the reasoning behind doing it this way. So
Right.
these are actual direct responses to 9.7,
Right,
and they were coded that way.
right.
Okay, so off, and that's what we asked them to do. And I'm asking everybody here, are you happy with it? Quick comments.
I guess what I was hearing, I'm certainly much happier than what was presented earlier. Roof shape, the gables, all that. It has kind of a woodsy feel to it. You know, if there was a lot of trees, what's hard here is you don't see all the landscaping softening it. I'm picturing hanging baskets with color, but I do appreciate the comment that varying colors of the different building, you know, in a complementary way to provide a little more of a village setting and to differentiate the building. So that's all I was taking away from what I heard today.
That's one comment, and the other ones we already heard is that it's a little bit dark, heavy, and foreboding, and not necessarily Parksville. See if they can adjust it. Are you writing these down? Or should I write down?
No, I'm not. Wendy's
Okay.
sitting at her desk and she is taking minutes at the
Okay.
moment. We're also recording it, so we
Okay.
can go back and do it later. It is helpful for the recommendations if they're as specific as possible with
Yeah.
suggestions as to what you would like to see.
So I think that would be something that would be addressed by this group. If we saw the final, another version, it would be, yes, we accept it or not. It's not so specific. It's at this point, it's not possible to be so specific. I wanted to point out that 1B, 2D, and number 4 are very closely related. They are about the way the buildings are deployed on the site and the way we move through the site. The passages, we've talked about that a lot. That all 3 of those points relate to the same idea, like how are the buildings or arranged? Are there places inside that mitigate noise and create a space like a village-like space? And is the pedestrian path continuous? I would offer that the pedestrian path is still a problem because of the drive-through, number 1, and number 2, the front of Serious Coffee Now, and the passage of cars and the whole parking arrangement. And I think that we're pretty clear that we want to make that area, change that area.
Sorry, so we're done with point number 1.
We're done with
Correct.
point number 1,
So-
A, B, and C. A, B, and C. We're dealing with point number 1D.
Okay, so are we retaining point 1A, B, and C? Or are we changing the language?
Well, yeah, we're changing the language to what I said earlier. What the language was that the
So-
style.
So you want point 1A, B, and C removed and replaced to speak about diversity between the buildings, identity of elements of play, adding extra color?
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. It's A, B, and D. A, B, and D concern the treatment of the building's exterior. And A, B, and D have been commented on as being a little bit problematic because of the darkness. We've heard good comments too, but right now we're challenging it with any kind of message that we want to give to the proponent. So the challenge is that it is not really a Parksville building. It is a nicer building than it was, and it adheres to the rules of a slope, materials, all of those things. And we're left with the issue that we don't feel it's that much like Parksville and the drive-through. Those two things are critical under point number 1B, A, B, and D.
May I
Number
ask?
Number
may I
C,
ask,
I'm sorry, we have to continue with this right now. We'll let us just try to hammer this out a little bit, okay?
I completely understand, but that viewpoint, is that just of yours, Michael, or is that of the entire committee?
So Ken,
Building
we're
on-
right now, we're forming the recommendations. So the panel will be discussing what the recommendations are, and this will be what staff will provide you with in the next couple of days.
Yeah, thank you. So B is building on and developing from the existing building B, which they've done. Building A is harmonizing with the immediate area, which is what we're questioning a little bit. If it actually harmonizes, it's better and a big improvement. And number D is that the buildings are considered on all 4 sides, being as how they all have 4 sides, except for the one that has 5. So those are all point 1 issues. And I'm extracting point C as being integral with the parking and the configuration of the buildings on site as to if you have a contiguous covered area and how the passages work through the site. So it's a site layout issue. It combines with the parking, with everything. So how do you actually define that with a recommendation? Yeah, that's right.
Maureen, can you just use your microphone, please? Thank you.
You're looking at 2 as much as you have looked at 1. I think you've gone through and done
As
A,
I said,
B, and
yeah.
B.
I'm combining 1C, 2D, and number 4.
Well, oh, see, I didn't get that. 1C, 2D.
And number 4, that combines site
And 4.
configuration, continuity of movement, and parking.
Sorry, so 1C, 2D, and then you went to 4, which
And
is
number 4.
lighting. I think you mean 4 on your list, but is it 4 in the design guidelines?
4 on this, the design guidelines has the same as our
Right.
recommendation
Okay.
numbering.
All
They're
right,
the same.
okay. Do you get that?
Yeah,
No,
sorry, I'm just trying to make it simple.
I don't
seem to
have
be
a copy.
working.
I'm sorry, Michael. I do not have a copy of what you're looking at. But no, it's okay. But what I'm trying to do now is to put our comments into a recommendation that meets the recommendations that we gave them. But I need to come up with a number in the recommendation, in the development permit area that will in fact be able to go
All right.
forward as a recommendation.
I stand corrected. I'm sorry. Number
okay.
1C in our recommendations is not the same as in the 9.7, so I'm wrong. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's true.
I didn't look at them.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so 1C. So I think
Can
what
I-
we've got out of that is we definitely felt that it was not harmonizing. So that would be one architectural design and character, and it says that it doesn't say harmonized, it should say that it's harmonized with the area, but it does say that it should in fact complement the area. Thank you.
So last time I think we have no choice but to become a little more specific, but refer directly to these terms.
Right.
So when we say complement, what do we mean? what we've been talking about, if I can reiterate what we've actually said, is that it doesn't complement because it's dark and because it is a little bit heavy and, in my opinion, overscaled. And the cultural identity is not representing what people think of as Parksville.
Okay, so that could be then, if that's 2A, which is what I was saying before, 2A buildings should be sited to respect existing natural features. So the natural features.
I don't know if that's necessarily what 2A means. I
Okay.
actually think that overall what we're getting at is that it's, if anything that we're commenting on, it's 1B and 1A. And what we're trying to say is that the proponent should, the recommendation is that the proponent respond better to the existing context of the residential neighborhood.
And also from what you were saying, that having all the buildings exactly the same in terms of finishes and colors, that really adds to that weight and that darkness. And that in fact, if it was broken up a little better so that one could differentiate the buildings would help. That was my takeaway.
Well, I would actually relate that comment more so to 8D, which talks about accessibility with the strong contrast of colors, paving treatments, bollards, and tactile strips. So I would use that as a recommendation for accessibility in terms of making the walkways more accessible, having more contrast on the site. And I don't know, colors are colors. Everybody's going to have a perspective on that. And I don't know that we can really comment on that because dark or light, it doesn't make a difference. That is the architect's choice. But in terms of having some contrast on the site for accessibility, for wayfinding, for people that might not be able to navigate a site that looks, it's an accessibility concern more so than anything.
So do we have some kind of consensus around those first points? I'm still going from our recommendations because we are really answering to those and then we have to convert them to working with so if we look at number 2, there are 3 components, 3 aspects: creating spaces within the site for shelter and sound reduction. The site and the product right now is the same as it was. They did not address that point. Increasing the separation between buildings A and B in order to heighten the value of building B, that's the terminal so that was also not done. And C, explore opportunities for building C to conform to zoning setbacks. That was done. It is not that, it is somehow clear. It wasn't done? But
No,
why
the
is the
buildings were
site,
not relocated.
but on the site drawing, it shows a setback line and the building is well within that setback line. What is my confusion here? Why am I seeing a setback line that is in the wrong place?
I'm not the file manager, so I can't answer that question, but it's my understanding that the buildings were not relocated. Perhaps Canmore could just answer that question if he's still
Yeah.
there.
No, unfortunately, let me see if there's a dimension. There's no dimension on the drawing that
I'm
shows,
still here, but
yeah. What, did you didn't change site building C, did you?
I
Is that still
don't
the same?
believe so. Yeah, I don't believe so, no.
No. Okay, so number D is building siting to be modified according to accommodate pedestrian connectivity and amenities places in a harmonious way. So the building siting, increase separation between building A and B, and creating spaces within the site for shelter and sound reduction. Those 3 were not addressed.
Can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
My recommendation would be to include covered bike parking somewhere on the site. I know that we're talking about shelter and canopies, but that recommendation I did not hear was made, and I think it's simple and easy enough and usually incorporated in new developments. It's not responding exactly to what you said, but I would make that recommendation at this time based on that point, I would add to it.
I didn't catch it. I would just like to point out that the proponents have been very much opposed, one way or the other, to changing the configuration of these buildings.
Understood. I think, yeah, 2D, Maureen, though, is what I mean. Concealed parking, concealed bike parking would fall under that category. I don't know that the buildings need to be relocated at this time. I think the driveway is under question, or the drive through, but I don't see a concern with the building location specifically.
Yeah. We asked about separating buildings A and B a little bit more, having more of a separation, which is combined with the issue of whether or not there's a drive-through or not now. We didn't address that so directly last time. If you look at the, let's see, if I look at the compass,
So could we
if
just
you look at
keep
the
that?
easternmost unit in building A, they've divided into little units, the strips. If you take the easternmost unit and just remove that, I mean, that cuts directly at their bottom line. I understand that. But if that was removed, then there would be enough space. Whether there's a drive-through or not is another issue. But removing that a few meters off the building changes a lot.
I'll just leave it on. I'm loud enough that I don't need a microphone.
So the issue with the microphone is just that we're going to be recording the minutes tomorrow,
know.
so.
Sorry, Sarah. So we were at 2D, if I'm not correct, and you want a comment about covered bike parking and separation between buildings was a thought that we had asked for under 2D.
Yes.
Right, okay. So if we could go on, Ben?
Well, I named those three things which were not addressed in this.
Right.
What are we going to do about that?
I think the only thing we can do is tell them again and explain to them that these were not done, although they were part of the recommendations that were sent to you after our previous meeting on February the 19th. Am I in the right ballpark?
Yeah. In my experience, if a proponent doesn't want to do something or has an alternate view on how to deal with it, they should present it. But to just ignore it means it hasn't been dealt with. I mean, I think that from my side, that sounds a little hard, but given the importance of this site, as we've talked about, and the mayor said he regrets sometimes not being forceful enough, I think that we've got a little bit of guidance there that we can say, let's try this because this site is valuable. It
Okay.
will provide an adequate rent. It will be fine. You know, we have to make our decisions about
Okay,
it.
so just want to remind everyone of the time. So I think, Maureen, are you going to summarize these when we're done?
I will,
Okay.
with your assistance.
Okay.
So can we move on then to 3, where 3A wanted them to review the choices of planting materials and choose plantings native to the coastal Douglas fir ecosystem, specifically to Parksville. Do you feel that we have, or that they have in fact met that guideline? 3A, which says landscaping should respect the natural vegetation of the site and should employ native species where feasible.
Yes. Well, I have not looked at the planting list.
There were changes to the tree species, and I think that, in my opinion, the concern with the landscaping is not the species at this time. It's more that there's not enough in the center of the site. I don't know, I'm just looking through. 9A is the one that calls out to me that nobody has considered or addressed yet, which is the incorporation of on-site stormwater management or rainwater capture features, which I don't currently see. My recommendation would be for them to implement a rainwater capture feature or stormwater management system or demonstrate how that has been provided based on 9A. But otherwise, I think in terms of the species themselves, I have no concerns.
They do have rainwater catchment areas.
Yeah, to the chair, could we comment to that?
Yeah, sure.
Sure,
We
go ahead.
did actually have quite a large stormwater area that was sheet drainage on the large rough grass hatch areas, both in that triangular area, but also that one there as well.
Okay, I remove that recommendation. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
So then 9A is not a concern. Okay, 9A is gone. So if we can go back to 3, we have the landscaping and screening. Again, we ask them to review the choices of planting materials and choose plantings native, which I believe they have done. But I believe that there were some concerns about the sea of asphalt with no break along the parking
But
areas.
that is not part of number 3.
Okay,
Sorry, could I
No.
get
It's
some
a part of number
clarification?
4.
Sorry, could I get some clarification on why why separation between building A and building B is being requested? And for building C, I did have a brief conversation with Kyle regarding that setback. And our understanding is that that development adjacent to us is no longer proceeding. So that setback is a moot point in the sense that we're not cutting down any more trees. And
Can I interrupt about the development that you're referring to that I think your understanding is not proceeding? So the development on the bottom of the page, so I'm not sure which direction that is. It's my understanding that there's a pause on that at the moment due to some funding constraints. They do have a development permit issued, which is valid for 2 years. So there is a point in time where in the future that could potentially still be constructed.
Makes sense. And in addition to that, it was also a fairly minor setback variance. So we would like to continue with that building as is. And also, if I can get clarification on why an increase in separation between building A and building B is being requested, that'd be great.
So Kenmore, just again, right now we're doing the recommendation formatting. You will have an opportunity to respond either if you're coming back to the advisory design panel or with providing a written response to the file manager at a later time. But I think right now the panel members need to focus on formatting their recommendations based on how they feel the site responds to the development permit guidelines.
Absolutely, and I agree. And but the comments that we got from Kyle, all they said was increase the separation between building A and building B in order to heighten the value of building B.
So the comments that were delivered from Kyle were the advisory design panel recommendations at the last meeting. So we're coming up with new recommendations for you today to help you guide you through the process.
It makes sense, but I just didn't understand what that meant by increase the separation between building A and building B in order to heighten the value of building B. So we didn't make any changes to the separation between building A and building B because we didn't really understand what was being asked and why it was being asked.
The increased separation means more meters or inches.
Yeah,
Whichever
no, I
you want to
understand
have.
that part, but
The reasoning behind it is, number one, at this point, when you have traffic going through there for your drive-through, that is all it is. 2 walls with cars between, very dense, very narrow, and very unpleasant. So if there is a drive-through, it's a congested, unfortunate channel between 2 buildings. And there is, as far as I remember, a window or 2 from Serious Coffee facing into that. It will be a very poor space. So the narrowness of it and the cars in it create a space which is highly undesirable. That is why we wanted to have it be at least wider so that there could be some mitigating elements in there.
So perhaps we can take some of the feedback and that maybe they need to have a bit more clarity in the recommendations to understand what is being requested and perhaps how to address those concerns. But I think it would be helpful to just move just into the recommendations right now, and we can discuss how to achieve those later with the applicant.
Right. Thank you very much. So I
All right.
believe we were through 3A with the 3A that they had done a lot of the work that we had asked them to do on landscaping and screening.
Yes, we agreed that 3 is taken care of.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yep,
so we can move to number 4.
right.
We're talking about section 8 guidelines. And we're talking about pedestrian connectivity and accessibility, accessible parking stalls. And that we have the connection routes between buildings that are safe, and also not just safe, not just the technical aspect, but we're actually getting a village environment is what we wanted to include. And that's why I was mentioning that the other points are integrated, how the buildings are configured, how much space is between the buildings. And for example, in the front of Serious Coffee, where the sidewalk doesn't exist and where the increased traffic and density will now no longer make it comfortable because movement will be constricted or conflicting with cars in that location. So we've talked about all of those things already multiple times. It doesn't look like we're going to get the buildings reconfigured because it means everything has to be redesigned. The parking, everything would have to change.
Yes,
And at this stage, that's a big deal. There'd have to be a very strong reason to recommend that. So the only recommendation we have talked about is to change the parking stalls in front of Serious Coffee, in front of Building B. The angled parking is right now undesigned. It's been left the way it was. And I believe, just by looking at this, that there's a viable way to change that parking so that there is room in front of Serious Coffee for a sidewalk, for traffic, not for parking, but for a green space where the mailbox or whatever it is across the front. That whole thing can be reconfigured to allow for traffic, people being dropped, and to move and still have a significant amount of, have a few spaces of parking left over, going from 12 to 6 or something like that.
So is some of those comments regarding the parking and the landscaping in the front, is that where we're bringing in 3B, talking about the tree strip along the front?
Three?
Yes.
Talk about 3.
I think that's 3B. There is a small, to point out in front of building A, there is a small planting strip. It doesn't necessarily say how wide or deep that planting strip has to be. So, I mean, in front of building A, on the northwest corner, there is a planting strip. It's hard with the design guidelines, but the developer has already mentioned, you know, a comment that we know there's more parking stalls than are needed on this site right now, and that the angled parking stalls, as they're designed, are difficult to access from a two-way aisle perspective. And I think that there should be a way of tying that into the context of this being the entry to Parksville and there being more green space along the highway near the front of the site. So that would tie into 3B, and it also ties into it's 3B.
It is 3B.
That's what it is.
Unfortunately, the design guidelines do not have any recommendations regarding parking,
Exactly. So it's
which
it's
was one of
3B.
our main concerns. When we're talking about the design guidelines, and I realize that these are really good. However, can we ever go outside of these guidelines?
Yeah, so you can recommend that a certain guideline be readdressed, and then you can also provide like some general general design comments
Okay.
for them to consider as well.
Okay.
It strengthens it when it's tied to the
Oh,
guidelines.
absolutely, absolutely. But we are having a lot of discussion, drive-through, not contained in the design guidelines, parking not contained in the design
Yeah.
Right.
guidelines.
You can
So
see
the
a
drive-
general.
Drive-through and parking are not explicitly in the guidelines, but there
No.
are things such as like screening or landscaping and things that you can look at that can soften the impacts of some of those things.
Right, but we can put a separate not a recommendation, but a confirming paragraph, if you will, at the end of the recommendation, meeting the recommendations of this and going outside the recommendations of the design guidelines to ask them to do more than what the design guidelines allow them or give them the opportunity to do.
You can ask.
You know,
But the development permit, when council considers whether that can be issued or not, they have to look at whether the guidelines have been met. So it is sort of more of an ask.
And at this point, I don't feel that we're getting a lot of positive feedback for any changes on the site, even the parking or any other kind of change. So I think if we have recommendations outside the design guidelines, if they're put into an ask, there's little chance of us getting them. But if we put them into a please do this, it's important that these that comments from the advisory design panel are also considered when making any changes to this plan. So I want them to know that we're not happy about those things that aren't in the design guidelines.
We've got here a set of requirements which are over specific in the sense that, for example, I'll give you one example here. It talks about that a walkway should be a meandering walkway. Now, if we take that a step back and say, we need specific kinds of walkways here, this thing says meandering walkway. Why would it say meandering walkway? I mean, it doesn't really make any sense for our development. But if you think about the idea of walkway and appropriate walkway, that is what this is addressing, is that the walkway should be
So-
appropriate.
Just one comment on that, specific to the Northwest Bay Boulevard is what's stated in C with the meandering walkway. So I just want to draw your attention to that it's not the Island Highway frontage. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, well,
Northwest Bay Road Boulevard.
the idea of landscape in these is talking about just planning out plants. Broader, taken broader, a landscape is all of the area outside of a building. We've kind of got a regulation here which is very categorical and very limited in terms of its scope for some reason, even though we have to consider those same things that are named here in that very narrow way. That's the problem we have here. Go ahead.
I think if I may, in the interest of time, since we're half an hour over, is it possible, I think, discussing whether the design guidelines are appropriate, we could take offline or to another area. And I think if there's a general recommendation that anyone has for the specific proposal, we could make that, whether they're in the guidelines or not, we could document that. And we could sort of keep moving forward because it's a different subject and we're already half an hour over time.
Well, that's why I was going through our previous recommendations, because we already had a structure.
Right.
And the idea was if we recommend something and it comes back unaddressed, we have to at least say yes or no. It's already on the table. And nothing that we've talked today is not part of the recommendations we made before. We're not making new recommendations. So where are we? We are
at
at number 4,
At
where we were
number
talking
4.
about the site access and the continuity of pedestrian passages and so on. The question is, have they done it adequately? And I made the suggestion that the one place where it's really critical is in front of Serious Coffee. And the whole discussion about the green space connecting to the road and all of that? Like, do we want to make a recommendation that they change the parking in front of building B and A and allow for a sidewalk and connectivity across the front of building B? And to integrate that with their architectural work? That's my recommendation. That's what I'm suggesting. And we've talked about it in numerous times already. So can we move forward with that?
If it's okay with everyone, could we just run through all the recommendations at the end of this? And I can also share what we are willing to do and what we will be doing. And there's one item that I'll need to run by ownership. And that way, I think it'll be a lot more productive going forward. And that way everyone knows where we're at as well. And maybe we can just get everything
Right.
sorted
Anwar,
today.
thank you very much. I appreciate your comment. Unfortunately, as the panel has indicated, we are already a half an hour over time of our time to be in this room and to finish the meeting. So once we get these guidelines sorted, I'm sure that Sarah and Wendy and the young gentleman who was here would be more than happy to speak with you tomorrow afternoon after they've had a look at the minutes of this meeting and what our recommendations are. It's difficult for us to give you those recommendations today because really they need to be fleshed out by staff before we want to say what we think will go forward to staff, and staff will then formulate what the recommendations are and speak with you about the recommendations. But I don't think the time now is to discuss those recommendations with you when we're trying to get them sorted and on paper, if you will.
That's
Just-
fair.
Okay.
I would like to say that the building A and building B separation, we will keep the same, and the building C will also remain the same as well.
Okay. Hate this thing. Okay, so I believe, Michael, were we at 4 then? And that we were okay, that they had met most of the recommendations of 4, because you had indicated that you wanted pedestrian connectivity, access, connection and safe access, a village environment, and sidewalks that don't conflict with traffic or cars in front of Serious Coffee.
Yeah, we will definitely incorporate that as well.
Okay,
Well, definitely-
Canmore, I'm going to ask that you just let the panel have a discussion.
Yeah, I did. I asked Kedwar if we could just have this discussion and that he could speak to staff after we have put this all together. So we are on the list, we are at 4, and then we go to guideline, and that was respect to 8. And I just wrote down what you indicated, Michael, and I didn't hear anybody say they had any more. Do you have more things under 8B?
Yeah, I think it's to address the walk in the front, the connectivity across all the buildings, especially at B where it's cut off, the parking, which is ineffectual, and to improve the green space in front of the building in that area because of the opportunity we have I think, as an aside, this was probably not considered very closely because it's considered pre-existing, right? So it wasn't really adjusted, and I think that can still be done, and it's not a big cost.
Excuse me, Maureen, if I could add that, for what it's worth in terms of the recommendation that consideration of removal of the drive-through would improve connectivity, pedestrian connectivity, allowing for a more harmonious path through the development, et cetera. And it's not only between building B and A, but it's also at that entrance to building A across from that area. So I just think that's a spot where it could fit.
Okay, so that was in under 8. That was just all of number 8, section 8 in the design guidelines, and I'll give you that. And then we go on to 9B. Again, it talks about the parking and non-pervious surfaces. And I would certainly, personally, I would say that there is too much asphalt, too much impermeable surface. And there are solutions to the issue of too much parking, and the parking should be, there should be more green spaces between the parking. I can't put it down in the way that you would
Okay.
say it, but there should be more green spaces where people can gather, even if they're just small places. While I get out of the car, it takes a while. I don't want to sit there and say, this is really ugly. I'm sitting here looking at this really ugly.
Can we make a concrete number? Like can we say we go with the 108? Because that is what the city requires.
Right.
So I think some of us are running, have some things that are scheduled at the end of our
Right.
day.
Sorry.
So if we could,
So that's
We're
section
doing,
8.
well, 108 is the number we go with, and speculating and trying to justify more parking is no, okay. The recommendation is we stick with 108 and we try to deploy that extra space appropriately according to what they have heard us say many times.
Okay.
I can't put that in the recommendation, but to make more green space, putting in 3 trees in front of building B is not significant.
Okay. So you will have Michael's comments. I wrote down a small part of those. Improve connectivity, pedestrian connectivity, and Mary indicated that she wanted to also improve the pedestrian connectivity and the drive-through. And
Right.
I believe you said about the parking as well, Mary? Okay. All right, so that was 9B, and and with respect to 9D, E, and F, there were to reconsider opportunities to control solar gain in the building design. I didn't see any kind of solar or water heating or any of that. I looked at the building plans, but none of that was indicated to me
I
clearly.
don't think that we are allowed to tell them what kind of mechanical systems they should use.
But we
I think
can
when we're
ask
talking
them.
about solar gain, meaning protection from the sun, cover, that is what they did provide. At least it appears to be there,
Okay, with the covering over the sidewalk, you mean?
so that the big windows facing south
Right,
are protected, and that
Right.
people walking are protected both from sun and rain. Both of those things have been addressed to some degree,
okay,
and I would be comfortable letting that go personally.
okay. So we can get 6 off your list, if I'm not correct. So this is what we're left with. And please help me out with this, Sarah. I believe 1A. And I believe 1A, and that was it. Sorry, and 2, I have 2A, B, C, and D. Covered bike parking was part of that. More.
Which list are you referring to now? The original
2A,
recommendations?
B, C, and D
On
in the
original
guidelines, in the guidelines.
Okay.
I believe that it says buildings, siting and massing, just a sec. Oh, maybe that was 8. Where did you find that, Mallory? About the bikes?
It is underground concealed parking is encouraged.
Right.
Sorry, underground or concealed parking is encouraged. The other one is, it could also be incorporated in 9D, which is
That was the
the
one.
incorporation of natural daylight and seasonal shade needs. I would think that it would also relate to seasonal shade
Okay.
potentially.
Yes.
It's
And-
maybe a stretch, but
So as much as it's not necessarily a recommendation, it is a, I want this, or we want this.
Well,
think
you
it's a
could look at it like this.
recommendation.
Number 2D recommends underground or concealed parking. The clear message there is that we don't want to have parking
it.
as a dominant feature. Therefore, we reduce the parking to the 188 required spaces, and we use that space to
Extra
create
space.
more green area and more mitigating circumstances for the shape of the building as
Right.
being, a little bit obtrusive, as well as allowing ourselves to have better connectivity across the site.
Okay.
That is the recommendation for, according to number 2D,
2D.
which in spirit is to reduce the
The
effect
amount
of
of
parking.
parking. Okay,
That's how
so
we
we've
do it.
got 2D as wanting,
It would be very helpful for recording if we could like number off the recommendation. So like recommendation number 1
right, okay,
is we address guideline 1A, B, C, maybe with some
Okay.
specifics.
so with the first recommendation, it would be 1A, that we found that the buildings were dark and heavy and overscaled and not meeting the cultural background of the Heritage Plaza. Not meeting any of those guidelines.
Were there like some
I-
things that you wanted them to look at, like materials, colors, like is there a direction that you can?
I
point
might
the applicant
reframe
to?
that. I might reframe that 1A, that the buildings could better respond to the context of the residential neighborhood and not include the part about the color. I think that the buildings are lighter. I did note that. And I think that, again, color is so subjective. There's nothing in the design guidelines about color, but they should fit better into the context of the surrounding neighborhood and including the heritage nature of the site.
Right, thank you. Mallory, you should be sitting here.
I would, yeah, and preface it by saying something like, while the new direction is very good. And then, because the direction is right, they've gone in the right direction, It's, if they could push it just a little further, that would be so wonderful. That's number
So
1.
that was 1. Then if you're looking at the 2, the siting and built form, what we were thinking of is 2D, where it says underground or concealed parking is encouraged. We don't feel that they have met that requirement because there is only a requirement for 108 parking spaces, and they have more than that. And we would like them to utilize that extra space for more green space
And what about
Including-
bicycle parking?
and covered bicycle parking.
Covered.
I would say is specifically noting the angled parking spots along
Right.
Island Highway and the 20-meter planting buffer and the 2-way drive aisle with angled parking stalls along that area. I would include that as well, and covered bike parking, and potentially consider bike parking near the front of the site in that location.
Yes, in front of Serious Coffee.
Yes. Building B.
Yes. Okay, so that was 2D. Now we've got 3 landscaping. I don't believe that there was much,
We said it's okay.
we
So
said
Let that
exactly.
one go.
So 3 is
It-
done.
Is there
Can I-
not a request to increase the amount of landscaping though? Or increase the amount of material?
Well, we
Right.
did say if they reduce the parking back to what it should be.
That's included in the previous and other recommendations. This recommendation number 3 was specifically about the type of planting. And that one, the type of planting, we're here and also have a little bit of faith because we're not experts that it's okay.
They
So,
did change some of their planting ideas with some more natural or native plants. I won't say it's over landscaped.
so no, that one's fine. What
Okay.
have we got in terms of the are we going to make a recommendation at all about the drive-through?
I know that we discussed putting not necessarily a recommendation, but a strongly worded paragraph after all of the recommendations are given. There's nothing we can tie the drive-through to.
Sure, but we've already been advised that we don't have to be exactly tied to it.
We don't have to be tied to it, but at this point
It's
in
better.
time, we can't say it's the wrong thing, even if we all think it's the wrong thing, because we don't have anything to hang our hats on.
No, but I think that our recommendation should reflect that the mayor was here and that a discussion about that took place. And so you're right, it should be in the recommendation as a comment.
I think perhaps what might be a good idea is if we can get through the recommendations and then we can add on a couple bullet points at the end to include
you.
some other aspects.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so 3A is gone. Now with respect to the section 8, we had said a number of things about section 8, the pedestrian connectivity, the access, you were wanting safe connections between the buildings. You would like to see a village feel to the development. The sidewalks and the traffic conflict. The pedestrians conflict with cars. And the area in front of Serious Coffee, I believe you said, again, to reduce, to put in planting and to make it.
Well, we
better
don't,
site.
yeah, we don't have to make the same recommendation twice
Okay,
from two different points of view. I mean,
Right.
I think that the recommendations, what we did last time was we created recommendations which were allied with all of the points, but didn't specifically reflect them. That is our, you can refer, it refers to say guideline 2A and 3A and 9B and 9D. But so we've got two recommendations now. The first one about the overall look of the building, and the second one is about the connectivity across the buildings, specifically talking about building B and the parking and the traffic right there, as well as the 20-minute. And we were going over the same thing over and over again here. It's, I don't understand.
No, I'm fine. I'm gonna let Sarah do this because she's more organized.
Right now,
believe.
we have two recommendations
Right.
only out of this whole thing. We've gotten two recommendations.
I have recorded that there's 3,
Three?
1A, 2D, as well as guideline, the previous recommendation number 4, which is discussing section 8 about connections, village
Right.
feel, conflict between vehicles and pedestrians, planting on the front of the building, connectivity, improving green space.
And then 9B, we talked about considering the amount of parking and non-pervious surfaces. And the accessible parking, I can live with the accessible parking. But with the amount of parking, there is too much non-pervious surfaces.
The specific recommendation is that we have to stick to the minimum. We've already been over this, like
Yeah,
making a
that's fine.
general,
Put in about
making
the
a general
parking, 1A.
assertion like there's just too much pavement is not a recommendation.
Okay,
That's a comment.
okay,
A
you.
recommendation is to say we stick to the 108. We do not speculate about future needs, and we deploy that area across the site to increase the green space and to better the connectivity and to create interior spaces on the site which develop the village feeling. That would be my recommendation, consolidating all of those points.
That's fine.
It's based in a fact, 108, and that equals between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet. And that's what we're kind of telling them what to do with that space.
Mhm.
So to re-summarize, 4 recommendations total. And then did you have any other comments that you wanted to put in?
I would like to put in some comments regarding the drive-through. Are there other comments that you want to put that are not in the guidelines?
Do you have like a specific direction about that aspect that you wanted them to
Certainly,
look
the
at?
drive-through was considered by the panel, from what I heard, was that the drive-through did not was not conducive to the movement in the site between the buildings or in the site itself. And again, I go back to back deliveries and all the rest of it. So having the drive-through in the middle of the development is not necessarily conducive to good pedestrian connectivity or even car connectivity by the time you come out and move around. Is there other comments about that, Mallory?
No, it's
Did you-
fine.
So sort of like considering drive-through in regards to how traffic, both automobile and pedestrian traffic
Yeah,
is moved throughout the site?
absolutely. Anyone else?
I think that what I'm seeing here is that the proponent is saying, is pushing back really hard on some fundamental geometry that it comes to this panel and it's like a fait accompli. We can make comments around the perimeters, but anything that really touches on certain parameters such as the building's footprint, we cannot move.
Mhm.
I think that I would like to recommend that the proponent and the architect relax and try to take seriously our recommendations rather than fighting them. And that this project can be successful. My experience says that there's nothing we've asked for which is going to make this project unviable.
Can I
And-
just,
And that's a recommendation.
can I ask one question too, just with regards to the recommendation? Are you recommending that they work with staff to address
Yes.
these recommendations?
would
Or are you
please work
or
with-
would you like them to come back to the panel again?
And that's a tough question. Bringing them back a 4th time is really a really hard push.
Remember, the second time they didn't do anything. Nothing.
Granted.
Nothing.
There were a number of items that were addressed the second time. It was just one major item that you felt wasn't addressed, and we did address that this time around.
I would think then that what we need to do going forward is for the proponent to work with staff to meet these recommendations. And if they don't meet the recommendations, that this probably should go forward to council with the recommendations in the staff report that's going to council, that the advisory design panel did have other concerns regarding the drive-through, regarding the harmonization in the neighborhood, regarding
So when it goes to council, the recommendations from the panel are in the staff report.
Yes, please.
So it's my understanding that then we're sort of requesting additional information. So as a sample, just saying that the advisory design panel recommends to council that development permit application number be accepted in principle and that the applicant revisit the following aspects. And then we would list your recommendations. Is that the approach that you're looking for?
I'm looking to,
Or
I want
can
council
you
to
phrase?
I want council to understand that we weren't as happy with this as we could be. So yes, in the staff report, I would like there to be.
No, sorry, I'm asking about what wording you want for your recommendation. What are you recommending the applicant do? Are you recommending
work
the
with-
applicant
to
come
work
back
with
to the
staff.
panel? Are you recommending that the applicant revisit a few aspects and work with staff?
You think you should come back?
I would think that that would be the way to go, that they revisit the issues that we've had and then work with staff to alleviate those issues. And then have it taken through to council and let it fall where it may. knowing after being in attendance today and having Mr. Mayor here and his impression of the neighborhood.
Yes, that they combine.
Sorry, Maureen, but Mallory was wanting to
Yes.
speak.
Just gonna say, I think it's important to make a recommendation. And the only reason I'm mentioning it right now is because I do feel it's important that pedestrian safety be addressed at the southwest corner of Building B.
Can we, sorry, Mallory speaking. Go
I
ahead.
just want to make a recommendation, even though it's not in the design guidelines, and only because I think it's really important that it be addressed, and that's that pedestrian safety be addressed at the southwest corner or the west corner of Building B. I think where that crosswalk goes across the driveway and then goes around the back of the building is a pedestrian concern. And so I think that should be addressed in some way. And I would just like to make that recommendation. Whether that's visibility, whatever it needs to be. But right now there's a pretty major crosswalk across the drive-through at that southwest corner. And somehow I think that my recommendation would be that that goes to council for them to, goes to staff for them to ensure that pedestrian safety at that corner get addressed.
So Maureen, we just need I think, moved in a seconder.
For the
minutes,
recommendations.
For the recommendations and then for closing the meeting as well.
Okay, so can I have,
Can I make one more suggestion? That we have a compilation of the comments that we have to check before and that they're sent to the proponent? And that would also then. go
We
to the
always send the
council.
recommendations to the panel prior to
Before-
sending
Not
it to the
not just the recommendations, but
The minutes we don't do the minutes until the minutes are adopted at the next advisory design panel meeting, whenever that is convened.
that's awkward. Okay. That's the system.
I understand what you're saying, Michael, but I also have indicated to the proponent that he would be able to speak with staff in the next couple of days and sort out exactly what this panel is looking for. And I think then would be the time to maybe give us a copy of the letter that you send to them. Would that be available or no?
We just email them the recommendations. We
Okay.
don't send them a letter.
Okay,
So once we have the recommendations drafted, we circulate them, make sure everyone
is
okay
okay
if
with
there's
them?
any suggestions. The
Okay,
minutes are not prepared until the next
No.
advisory design panel meeting, and then they're adopted at that time.
right. I just was thinking that it might be helpful for the panel if we actually see what has gone to the applicant, proponent, whichever way you want to put it, before it goes to council.
So we need a seconder?
Set recommendations and guidelines that we've given and a seconder. Okay, what's in favor? Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything there at the end. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It seems like the meeting's over.